This is BoomerLife on CL650.
Let me help. If a child needs a dad, I can help.
This is BoomerLife on CL650. I'm Joanne Sutton, along with Maria Howard, CEO of the Alzheimer's Society of British Columbia. And the focus of today's show is caregiving. The stresses involved with the responsibility of stepping in and having to help a loved one who's been diagnosed with Alzheimer's or a form of dementia. So, Maria, I don't think some spouses or family members really have any idea how tough this actual role is.
Yeah, I agree, Joanne. You know, it is a very tough role, and I think that those who are caring for someone with dementia can really go through, you know, a range of emotions from, you know, sadness and anger to guilt to, you know, exhaustion and frustration and loneliness. And the journey of dementia is a constantly changing journey. So it's often you don't know what to predict what is coming, and you also can feel so alone. And so it's so important to have support around you to just know that you're not in this alone. There's other people who understand, and that, you know, there are people who just want to be there and provide as much help and support and hopefully, you know, find the best way to go through the journey as possible. It can be very tough.
Mm-hmm. And on that note, let's introduce our next guest, who plays a very significant role in this equation of caregiving for dementia. We'll say hello to Mariel Randerson. Hello, Mariel.
Hello, Joanne.
Where have we found you today?
I'm at the Alzheimer's Society of BC in the Resource Centre here in Victoria.
Well, it's always wonderful to have members of the Society's field staff joining us. So Mariel is a support and education coordinator with First Link for the Alzheimer's Society of BC. So our first question normally to any guest of our show is, do you have a personal connection to the disease that you care to share with us today?
Yeah, sure. I can let you know my grandmother on my father's side had vascular dementia. And although I wasn't the primary caregiver for him, my father actually was. I got to witness firsthand what that was like for him and all of the stresses that went along with it, especially because she ended up exhibiting a lot of symptoms of paranoia, and so accusing him of stealing from her. And, you know, so it was really hard for him because back then we didn't have the education. I didn't know what I know now. And so it was a very stressful journey for him.
Absolutely. We didn't have the resources that are available today. So, Mariel, we're talking about the importance of caregivers managing the stresses of that dementia journey to help avoid issues like burnout. Just, you know, similar to the story that we heard of Joanne Egan when talking about caregiving for her husband, that she ended up in the hospital with health issues herself. Does the Society actually offer any help or any special programming that focuses on these types of issues?
Absolutely. Yeah, you know, that's really a huge focus of what we do here at the Resource Centre. We offer education programs on pretty much every topic that you can think of that would have to do with dementia and caregiving. So that's anything from understanding what's going on in the brain when somebody has dementia, to really learning how they can communicate with the person, how to make sense of those sometimes really unusual behaviors that are going on, like, for example, what Joanne was talking about, even something like the putting the cilantro on the breakfast cereal. You know, we help people understand what's going on in terms of processing visual input and being able to complete a task that maybe has several steps to it that we all take for granted, right? And then once somebody really understands what's going on with that, they can support the person in a way that helps them to have the best life possible without it becoming as much of a stressful journey as it is if you don't have that understanding. One of our most popular courses is called the Family Caregiver Series, and in that we have people doing all kinds of things. We teach them, but also we have them working in small groups together so that we take actual real-life situations that happen in the home and have them process through what are some of the different ways that I could deal with this if it came up with my loved one. And, sometimes those repetitive questions, right? When you've heard the same question 20 times over, how do you keep yourself calm enough that you don't end up exploding, right? Because that's really normal to lose your patience. But what we do is teach people how to prevent that from happening and strategies that they can use. Another big part of it is understanding also what's underneath a lot of the frustration, the anger, losing your patience. Underneath that surface, people are dealing with so much loss. They're seeing their person acting in ways they've never seen them act before. They maybe, often for a spouse, it's their best friend who they've, been able to talk with over the morning paper and have really good discussions, and all of a sudden they're not able to do that with that person. They can't even, work together to make decisions on big things that they would have done in the past, let alone, just the small things like what are we going to have for dinner tonight. So that it's huge losses that we're talking about. And, of course, any time that we're dealing with loss, we're dealing with grief. And that grief is what, if it doesn't get named as grief, it often comes out as frustration, anger, losing your patience, getting angry with the clerk at the grocery store. It ends up getting put somewhere else. And so we teach people as well how to cope with grief. What are the different ways that they can deal with it so that it doesn't become so unmanageable? Of course, the other way, that you had just mentioned too, grief can come out as physical ailments, right? People can end up having problems with their own physical health that they just keep going, oh, you know what, I'll go and talk to the doctor later about that. Right now, I just have to look after my person that has dementia. And then, of course, it gets postponed. And, sadly, I've known several caregivers, even in the 5 years that I've been here, that have died before their partner with dementia. Yeah, and it's a result, largely of the huge amount of stress that they're under and not attending to themselves.
Absolutely. Oh, my gosh, you've raised so many incredible points, Marielle. I'm just wondering, I can imagine that when people finally come to you, either phoning the Dementia Helpline or coming into your centre on Vancouver Island, they're usually at their wits' end. This is what I would imagine. So what types of questions do you get asked when people call for your help? Can you give us any examples of that?
Oh. Well, I think probably one of the biggest things is that people call us and say, I just don't know what to do anymore. I just don't know how to cope. And, I know that I don't want him to, go into a care home yet, but I really don't feel like I can do it anymore on my own. And so what we do then is connect them with the health authority, tell them about how the system works. We even have a course called Accessing Services where we talk all about how they can ask for a case manager. That case manager will then help them arrange to get home support coming in. Maybe the person can go to a day program where they're, kind of out of the home for about 4 hours, which is a good solid amount of time for that caregiver to have a break, have a nap if they need to, go out for a coffee with a friend, or, like Joanne was saying, she goes for an exercise, goes for a walk with a group of friends. And, those are the kinds of things that are going to help the person stay the course, because it is. We talk about this. It's not like running a sprint. It's like running a marathon, right? You've got to have the resources that you need to be in there for the long haul. And eventually it does come time where the person might need to go into a care facility, and we get those phone calls too, and people feeling guilty that, I tried the best that I could, but I just can't do it anymore. But my siblings saying, no, Mom shouldn't go into care yet, and I feel all this guilt. And so we talk people through that, and we look at, well, maybe it is time. Like, have you used all those resources that were available to you and it's still too difficult? Okay, then, then it is time. And maybe your sibling's living, 4 hours away and only comes once in a blue moon to help out. Well, they're not the ones who can really make that decision. If you're the one doing the primary caregiving, then that's a decision, that you need to make with a good sounding board, and that's something that we can be for people. We can't make the decision for them, obviously, but we can help them look at all of the factors that go into making that decision. Things like, if the person with dementia is up all night and the caregiver is up with them and then also trying to care for them and run a household and go to doctor's appointments and stuff during the day. I mean, it's not reasonable to think that anybody can do this journey on their own. It really does take a team of people to look after somebody with dementia.
Well, I think you've just given a great outline of some of the programs and services offered by the Alzheimer's Society of BC. I don't think the average person realizes that the care for caregivers is just as important as the care for the person who's been diagnosed with the disease.
Of course, yeah. And I think you're right. I think that even when people are in the journey, they still don't realize how important it is for them to look after themselves. And, we do hear caregivers saying, oh my gosh, if one person tells me again that I need to look after myself, I'm going to scream. It's like, of course I know I need to look after myself. I don't have time to look after myself.
When we're only telling you to look after yourself because you're at your wit's end and we can see it from the outside. It's hard to see when you're in the inside. So, Mariel, let's just wrap up our conversation today with, what's a simple form of advice that you could say to someone who's in that situation, who happen to be concerned about caregivers in their life, or anything else you want to share on this topic?
Well, I would say if you're a friend of a caregiver, ask what you can do to help out. And if they say, oh, it's okay, we're fine, then start to think of some practical things that you might be able to do. Maybe you can pick up some groceries when you're doing your shopping, do their shopping for them as well. That'd be a big hand. Offer to go and sit with the person or take them out for an ice cream so that caregiver can have a break. And if you're a caregiver, come and take either our courses or come to one of our support groups. They're really valuable. Caregivers say to us all the time, unless you've walked this journey, you really don't know what it's like. And so it's really hard to talk to somebody that's not a caregiver. But when you're talking to somebody who's going through it, you really get that feeling that, okay, I'm not doing this alone. I can keep doing this. And that's huge. That has huge value. So the support groups, or, just give us a call, give the Dementia Helpline a call. We're here to support you.
This is BoomerLife on CL 650, and you've been listening to the words of Mariel Randerson. She's a support coordinator with First Link and the Alzheimer's Society of BC. Mariel, thanks so much for your contributions to today's show. Where can somebody find you on the island if they wanted to come into your centre?
Oh, so we're right at the corner of Tillicum and Burnside in Victoria, right across from the Tillicum Mall, actually. So we're at 306 Burnside Road West. And we're just above the Royal Bank. So come on down and see us. We're open Monday to Thursday from 9 to 4. And you can also call us at 250-382-2052. So that's 250-382-2052.
And if you have any further questions about the Alzheimer's Society of BC, please visit the website, AlzhiemerBC.org. Mariel, thanks once again. And the conversation of caregiving will continue in a moment with more from a volunteer and from CEO Maria Howard. Stay with us on BoomerLife on CL 650.
Celebrating the baby boomer lifestyle. This is Boomer Life on CL 650.